Hi, True Crime Grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee. You, dyslexic detective, armchair detective. Let's just make that clear. If you're new here, hi. I am a ABD, which is all but dissertation, education psychology person who, mom of three. I've been a true crime fan my whole entire life and watched the original. Was it just Court the cable channel Court TV, which was like the only one that was just Court TV, and now it's exploded into everything, and then including since the pandemic hit and my dissertation fell apart. Hey, I started my own channel. Why not, right? And I do try to stick to the facts and then give you some of my theories, but mainly how I differentiate myself, if you're new here, is that I tell you what all the other YouTubers are saying and sort of direct you to the sources that I think you might like. So, a lot of other YouTubers say they don't have a lot of time to watch YouTube itself. So, it's kind of, interesting and ironic. I have been watching YouTube true crime since the pandemic started. I love it. I have some of my favorites. I try to watch a little bit of like detectives, like FBI, old retired law enforcement people. I also watch psychologists and criminal psychologists as well as um, psychologists who like are therapist psychologists. And I watch a lot of just people like myself who have YouTube channels. I didn't used to go live all the time, but there is too much crime and not enough time. So to keep up with everything, I still might try to do weekly roundups that are taped and a little more structured, where I can at least have my editor put up pictures. I'm going to try to figure out a way to do this. Um, but for right now, I'm trying to go just live every night around 11 o'clock, and we have a nightcap. So the True Crime Grapevine, I started in, it was 2222. That was my first upload. And I drank for every case. Guess what? I got sick. So now I just have one drink, and I'm down to nightcaps. I was doing a lot of hot toddies because I had a sore throat. I'm gonna try Grand Marnier. I've only had it in as part of a margarita, but I got this handy dandy little sniffer glass. It's not sniffer. There's my dyslexia. Um, it's a Why can't I say that word? I'm not even gonna try to say it again. One of the glasses that you have a little nightcap in. Nightcaps typically are brown. They're cognacs a lot. Grand Marnier is brandy and cognac with some orange aromatic bitters. So I'm just gonna pour a little bit. It is 40% alcohol. And I don't really drink, which I thought it was funny because my show was the grapevine that I should drink. So here's my little sip. Swirl it. I don't know. Do you swirl cognac? Oh, it smells like alcohol. Let's have a sip. And let's dedicate this and say not cheers. I don't know. In memory of the Idaho Four, Kaylee Goncalves, Maddie Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and of course, Xana Kernoldo. There, for dyslexic, not too bad. All right, to them. Oh, it's kind of sweet, really strong, not too bad. If I drink just that little bit, maybe I won't get, hoo hoo. All right, so for tonight, we do have more Idaho because that's basically all anybody's talking about. The most important thing that you need to know is that on this upcoming Thursday, Brian Koberger will be in court for a probable cause hearing. And that will happen at 10 o'clock, the 12th, his time, which is Northern Ohio, which is on Pacific time. So 3 hours after Easter Standard Time. So, and I am sure one of my favorite channel to watch things live is at Ickadmel. His name's Melvin. At Ickadmel is his at on Twitter and how you find him on YouTube. He is a he's sort of young man. He's got a daughter, but he's younger than I am. He is in Florida. He just has a great way of streaming. He's live. He takes callers. It's a very good channel to follow, especially when there's breaking things. He is not like an expert in any specific like legal or crime area, but he is a kind, respectful, interested and very he's open to learning host, and I enjoy watching him. And because he crowdsources and lets just anybody call in, and he is respectful to everybody, even if like you might go, that's crazy, or I, like, why is he listening to this person? He's kind and respectful, and you actually hear some things first on his channel that seem a little unreal, and they turn out to be true. Okay, so speaking of unreal and turning out to be true, the biggest hubbub, and it is not, it isn't, I want to say, I want to be respectful here. It was a big name came out with a claim that they found information that supposedly Brian wrote on a website, and they claimed that they have an associated email. Now, this was written in 2011, and they're saying he was 17. Well, he turned 17 in late November is his birthday. So he was 16 when this supposed post was written, and it claims the person talks like somebody who is disassociating and has the at least beginning symptoms of what I think of as schizophrenia type speech, feeling like divorced from his own body, even divorced from his family, feeling like he's not human, disassociating. I don't study abnormal psychology. I just study typical psychology, and part of typical psychology, human development, is talking about when things can go sideways. I don't specialize in that, but I do know about atypical development, and schizophrenia is something that in males develops in late teens, early 20s, and in women a little bit later. So, is this Brian? We don't know. There's no way to know. It is interesting that it suddenly came out after we know who Brian is and that he's accused of this crime. So you got to take it with a grain of salt, because there's a lot of people even that can like deep fakes. They can make something that looks like it's an associated email address. The channel also is claiming that the let me just go back. The post itself, it was written on July 4th, one of the main posts, July 4th, 2011. And it says, this is the last holiday I'll be spending with my family. Like, I don't feel like I'm really part of them anymore. I'll be moving out of the house. Okay, Brian would have been 16 and he would have turned 17. So this is July, August, September, October, November, in 4 months. In his yearbook of 2011. And, yearbooks are by the date of the end. How an academic year is like 2010, and then the spring, and then it ends and people graduate. The yearbook is named like the graduating time of, the last part of the academic year. So in this yearbook, that Fox had the picture of him being the Army Ranger, and it says, Brian Koberger, and it spelled his name wrong, but in the article by Fox, they did say that they looked through all the other yearbooks, and there is nobody with that name different spelled like that. There is no person with that. They misspelled his last name. They put an R, I believe, in it. So it is Brian, and it looks like Brian, and it looks like when he was a little bit overweight, and he's doing a push-up, and it just says sophomore Brian Koberger, misspelled, is wants to be an Army Ranger or something. So that's where he was in 2011. His yearbook from his high school says sophomore. It's from the 2011 yearbook. It also matches with his birth date. He was born in late November. I think it's the 28th or 29th. It's late 20s, 1994. So if you just subtract, you go, oh, well, in that year, he was 17. No, he turned 17 and his birthday's at the end of that year. So as a 16-year-old, was he really writing on July 4th how I mean, all the other stuff I could buy that he could feel weird, right? Because we know serial killers notice that they have these feelings. I don't know if they talk so much about disassociating. They talk more about like I want to kill people. I feel like I'd like to see people scorn. I mean, it's not it this just describes a very disassociating young man, but to me, it sounds more like an older teen, or it actually sounds like a young 20s. It does not sound like a 16-year-old. Part of the letter talks about, I remember when I was 15. I remember when I was 15, when you're just 16, sounds odd to me that you'd be like, I remember when but that's my opinion. He could have been. It could be, it could be Brian, except as a sophomore who had just, finished his sophomore year. On July 4th, he was talking about leaving his family, moving out. And I had a little repartee on Twitter with Ikid Mel just to say, because he was talking about this. I'm like, I think you better check that timeline. And everybody's like, no, but he was 17 and he could have been graduating early. Okay, number one, triangulate. Look at me. I'm looking at myself on the stupid screen. So a triangle. Triangulate. The yearbook says sophomore 2011, which matches when he would have started school, because I was a kindergarten teacher for many years. Especially by the 90s, you did not start school when you were 4. Now, when it was like the early 60s, they used to let kids start school way, or like you could be 5 anytime during that school year. But by the 90s, we knew that like there were young 5s and they were developmentally very different from older kids, and people are starting to hold back, like red shirt their kindergartners so they would do better, and even better in sports. People were doing that when they were 5. So you don't want kids who are 4 and kids who are almost 6. That's a 2-year range. You don't want that in a kindergarten class. That becomes very difficult for the instructor, the teacher, the kindergarten teacher. That's a huge maturity difference between a 6-year-old and an older 4-year-old. So they start, there's cut dates. And usually, nowadays, you have to be 5, I think by August 1st. And sometimes I think they're even backing it up. They don't want young 5s in the classroom, because kindergarten is now what used to be first grade. They teach them to read. If you're closer to 6 and 7, you're going to be able to read easier. Everything's got pushed back developmentally. So, but in 1994, with a late November birthday, no way in hell he went to school as a 4-year-old for September, October, and November. They wouldn't allow a 4-year-old to be in a kindergarten class. He would have gone to kindergarten when he was 5, turning 6. So no, he wasn't. I think people are thinking like, if you have a July birthday, maybe you can be like, my whole senior year, I wasn't 18 yet. Like I didn't drive, and wasn't of driving age until I was a junior. But Brian, we know from his yearbook, it was his sophomore year, and figuring out from, just 2011, and he was born in 1994. He was 16, turning 17 the next year. So we also have to think about all his friends that we've reported on who have said between his junior and senior year, he changed. He got real skinny, rail thin. Seems like maybe he started using drugs. That's also when, after his senior year, there's a 3-year gap between when he starts showing up going to his associate's degree. He finishes that in 2018. So he probably started it it's a 2-year degree. So 2016. But he graduates in 2013. That's another corroborated, separately from the Fox article. The Spokane spokesman wrote that. So maybe it's just spokesman. I think it's Spokane spokesman. It's on Twitter. I'm Trish Lee at Crazy Mama 007. You can go look it up. So I was trying to say to people, and I got one sort of snarky response with like a little, oh, we check. You stupid person. You got to trust us because I'm a big account. And obviously, that's what no offense, that's what it felt like. And Okay, but everybody can make mistakes. And I'm sorry, the math ain't mathin'. The yearbook said sophomore. That goes with actual when he would start school based on his birth date. And yeah, he'd be a sophomore. He would have finished that his sophomore year. He would be a junior going in when he turned 17, his junior year, and he would have been 18. So this one account's like, no, he graduated when he was 16. I was like, no, 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 he didn't. I mean, where are you getting that from? I don't know. So I never heard back from the account when I said, okay, but they're like, no, we check our sources. Okay. Could I be wrong? Hell yes. I'm wrong all the time. So maybe I'm wrong. The other thing is, I don't know where that gets us. So there's this messed up, very disassociative description from somebody. Okay. Okay. I don't know how it furthers our conversation about. I mean, we know that he's wasn't right. We know that we've heard he had a heroin addiction that supposedly he was getting over by 2017, which kind of makes sense if he was starting his associate's, degree in 2016, 17, getting his act together. That all makes sense. So, and if he was a heroin addict after he graduated in 2013, I read somewhere and I couldn't find it. I need to look back at my screenshots that he went to some sort of like technology school, like a tech, like to learn about like heating, cooling, maybe, or something like that. There was some friend who said something. So, did he do that between 2013 and 2016 before he did his associates? I don't know. But there is a gap between 2013 when he graduated and when he starts his associate's degree at the community college. If he really did graduate when he was 16, that would be 2011. And where was he? Or if the next year he graduated in 2012, that's another year. Where'd he go? I, Again, the math ain't mathin', and I trust that the people who have newspapers, when they publish he graduated this date, I assume that they're accurate because it also went with his birthday. All right, that's just my opinion. But we are going to find out more Thursday. So mark Thursday afternoon. Let's see, 10, 11, 12. So it'll be about 1 o'clock, and it might be later depending on when things start. So after lunch, be ready to watch. I'm going to probably watch it if Iked Mel goes live. That's who I am going to watch because he will stream it live and he'll have some lively conversation. And I really appreciate his sense of humor. All right, that is what I have to say about that. Tomorrow. Now, a case we haven't spoken about in a long time, and we're going to raise our glass to Maya Miliete. Maya Miliete she was a mom that went missing. Has it been 2 years now? She went missing from California. I have to review my case. Sorry, I just saw that. Hold on a second. This is for Maya. She went missing, I believe it was in January of 2021 at night. Her daughter's 11th birthday was going to be the next couple days and she missed it. And that's when her whole family reported her missing. Her husband was like, oh yeah, she was in her bedroom and then she locked the door and then I don't know where she went. And she left in her Jeep and he had all kinds of weird excuses. Come to find out, from somebody's Ring camera, there was what sounded like a couple gunshots the night she went missing and wasn't seen again. And there were some holes in the wall next to her bedroom, which she had some excuse for. The next day, her sister did come and look for her immediately. And she and the brother-in-law said it smelled horrible, like it smelled so strongly of bleach. So he was investigated, and last year he was arrested, but it's a no body homicide, which is very difficult, more difficult to prosecute. what we found out when he was arrested was that he had been contacting a lot of, I believe they're originally from the Philippines, and their culture is a little bit different. And he was contacting spellcasters to make his wife like love him again. So he was worried about, she apparently was leaving him. And we know that's the most dangerous time for women is when they leave a marriage. They had three small children. I'll get my case file out. I will make sure I review it and talk about it more. But tomorrow at 8:30, I believe it's their time. So again, that's West Coast. So 8:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30. So first, um, in I think it'll be at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time, but 8:30 a.m. Western, what is it, Pacific time? He's going to be in court. So we're going to get going with his case. And it will be a murder case. So it should be very interesting. So the Murdaugh murders. Let's talk about Alec. What's wrong with Alec? Alec is going to be back in court. Hold on a second. When is he going back in court? Alec is going back in court soon. His trial is going to begin his trial begins in Walterboro, South Carolina, and I think Gigi from Pretty Lies and Alibis, she lives in South Carolina, but she lives in I believe she is around Greenville, if I'm right. I think she's going to the trial. The trials are kind of her jam. She said I think she went to Jodi Arias's trial and like flew out there and went to it. So it's in her state. She's definitely probably going to go down there and sit down. She'll let us know what's going on in court. It starts January 23rd. So there's been a lot of motions in Emily D. Baker. If you like law talking stuff and you want to learn about how the law works, watch at Emily D. Baker. She is great. She calls them motions in lemonade. They're motions in limine, meaning all the pretrial motions. So what has been happening since December 20th is Alec's team is trying to they want the state to give them everything from Eddie Smith's polygraph that they like as part of the discovery. And the state is trying to suppress that because polygraphs can't be used as evidence. But polygraphs can be used in an exculpatory manner if it helps. It's not considered the truth, but it can be considered. So we'll see if the prosecution is able to get it suppressed. Let's see. The judge, Judge Newman, has issued an order. Oh, yes, of course. Preventing the public from knowing anything about the jurors. So we won't hear anything about the jurors. If it's like other cases, the people who go and sit in court, so they won't show the jurors. We won't be able to find out about their names, their addresses, anything about them, but we may have somebody say there's this many women, this many men. There will be 15 because it's a petty, that sounds like, I mean, petty. It's more like petite jury. It means it's the smaller one. The grand jury, which I talked about before, grand jury is the larger number of people. They're the ones who listen to evidence and vote to indict or not indict, and it's in secret. Only the prosecution goes before the grand jury. The public doesn't really know what's being talked about, and that's partially to protect the public or anybody who is being considered to being indicted, that if you're not indicted, nobody knows that you were even up for indictment. So it protects you, the citizen. So, but a petite jury, a small jury, is like what we think of as a regular jury, 12 jurors, but they always have 3 alternate jurors in case somebody gets sick or, in this case, probably COVID or whatever. So This is going to be a long trial. It should start the 23rd. So we won't, Judge Newman did say that we won't know that. And the other things that they're still fighting about. So there was a lot of filings on December 28th, right before the new year. The defense doesn't want anything about the financial crimes because they feel that it's prejudicial as prior bad acts. And of course, the prosecution is like, no, the financial crimes, that's the whole reason he killed. I mean, that's their scenario. No, his firm was finding out about the financial crimes. He needed to stop it. So he killed his wife and kid as a distraction, which kind of sounds like very severe. But that's what they say. So will the financial crimes be allowed to come in, or will they be found too prejudicial as prior bad acts? We don't know. We'll find out about that. I will tell you when they have decided. And like I said, so they're also fighting about this some other dude. They want to introduce whatever Eddie Smith said, and the prosecution has actually filed a thing saying they don't want any third party guilt. I don't know any evidence related to possible third party guilt, but you're allowed to present an alternative theory like there's some other dude. In fact, it's classic. I don't know how they could say you can't do that. I don't know if that's constitutional to say you can't say somebody else did it. You can just say I don't think that's a thing. But maybe not. So again, cousin Eddie Smith. If you don't know who Eddie Smith is, if you don't know a lot about this down home South Cackalack murder and financial like fiasco, you must go watch Mandy Matney's murder. I told you, dyslexic detective. Murder podcast. Go watch it. Now, she and Eric Bland have started another, I think it's called Cup of Justice, which I have to get on. That's a whole other thing. Eric Bland is an attorney that was representing some of the son of Alex victims that he defrauded, that he was supposed to represent in these like trip and fall and accidental civil cases. And he got huge claims for them. And then he took the money and ran. And he and his pal Russell Lafitte, who was convicted now on a lot of those crimes with Alec. Now, Alec hasn't been convicted yet. He's going up for murder first. But Eddie was part of that. Eddie Smith was the guy who was hired, I guess, to shoot Alec. And he claimed somebody else did it, but it was really Eddie. And Eddie said, Alec said to do it. It's a real incestuous sort of, it is a Southern down home crazy murder for hire. I think it is a murder for hire. I think Eddie, because apparently on the polygraph he failed the questions related to were you there at the murders? Do you know who murdered Paul and Maggie? Paul being Alec Murdaugh's 22-year-old son, Maggie being his 52-year-old wife, both who were killed on June 7th, 2021. They're like financial crimes. Was Maggie cheating, or was she divorcing Alec? The son had used their boat. He apparently had a drinking problem, and he killed one of his friends in 2019. It's all in Mandy Matney's podcast. Go watch it. And you can watch, I'd start from the beginning, but you can watch about the boat crash that started it all with Paul. You can just do the part where like Paul and Maggie are murdered, what happened. That was at Moselle, their property, their hunting property. Their hunting property may have been used, allegedly, in drugs. And Mandy and Matney went through this long historical thing about it. I think that one's called Jackpot. This whole long there's like South Carolina history, and the Murdaughs are involved in this, his great granddaddy, in drug running. So you must don't mess around with like Dateline, or any of these other like 2 hour. It, take the time on your drive to and from wherever. Mandy Matney's murder podcast. It's a must watch. All right. So I will keep you abreast on those motions in limine and if they how they come out. All right. And there's a new case. It's a mom from Massachusetts. She has not been found, I believe. No, she's missing. She's a missing mom, but her husband was just arrested today for murder. Now, if you're a true crime fan, you know when wives go missing, usually a husband, or if she's got a boyfriend, and if it's the husband, lots of times it's the wife or the girlfriend. This is time tale as old as time, right? But this is kind of interesting because she went missing. The last time she was seen, I assume there was some sort of party, was between 4 and 5 a.m. January 1st. So New Year's Eve into New Year's. So she was seen New Year's. Her husband said, oh, well, she got this call. She had to rush off. She works in DC. She got a ride share and then she got on a plane. That's where she was going. And oh my gosh, what? She's missing. Okay, so obviously, and that now her work, which she prior to this emergency, which I'm not sure happened, she was supposed to work by Wednesday. So on Wednesday, she doesn't show up for work. She's this. It sounds like she was a high-powered real estate agent in DC, which is interesting because she has kids between 2 and 6, 3 boys. So she's Wonder Woman. I really couldn't handle full-time job and 3 kids. I was a stay-at-home mom because I am not organized enough to do all that. Really, I'm not I just couldn't do it. So this woman was just an amazing woman. Her name is Anna Walsh, and her husband's name is Matt. And Matt is now in jail because I don't think there was an emergency phone call. Her credit cards aren't used. Her phone wasn't used. Her car was there because, she went on rideshare. There was no rideshare that there's any evidence of. There was no plane ticket in her name, a flight on January 1st when she had this emergency. And I'm assuming her work was like, yeah, no, there was no emergency. And that's why the dad, I don't know if they found anything. I do know they looked at their house. They looked in their pool. They looked around the woods around their house. I don't think they found the body yet, but he was arrested. So we will hear more about that soon, I'm sure. Again, I told you the big stories that blow up in true crime tend to be like if they're whodunits. We don't get why. Where is somebody? So her body is still missing. I mean, if she just shows up out of the blue, it would be crazy. So my guess was she either lied about having an emergency job and she just took off. 2 was obviously the husband did it. Hi there, Casey. How are you doing? 3 was like somebody got her, but it looks like, I mean, the police think it's number 2. The husband did it. Again, not very exciting. All right, but but they haven't found the body, and it will be interesting to hear about. Let's see. We still don't know about we haven't heard anything, or I haven't heard anything about the 2 suspects in the Mikey Vaughn, the Idaho case of the missing. He'd be 6 now. He went missing when he was 5 in the summer of 2021. Mikey Vaughn. We don't know where he went. They were looking in a neighbor not too far away in the same subdivision, but a couple streets over. The woman was not right in her mind. She seemed to have an issue. Have I heard about? Yeah, I just talked about the Anna Walsh case. It happened near you. So you are it's Massachusetts, right? And it's a name in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is great because they use Native American names. Um, but and I'm dyslexic. It's kind of hard to say. Is that right? Yeah. And you wrote it, yes. And I look at me now. I have to squint. Let me put on my. Let's see. Yeah. Cohasset. Did I say that right? Cohasset. I'm waiting. KCT. Is that right? Cohasset. Um, Massachusetts. Yes. And you live in Ticketit. T. It looks like T ticket. Ticketit. Oh, thank you. Okay, so yeah, that case is very interesting. I just went through the thing that, supposedly the husband said she had an emergency meeting on January 1st. Okay, but she works in Washington D.C. and I don't know what kind of real estate she sells. Maybe she did. I don't know. Maybe she had something to do with a congressman, the newly elected congressman who needed great digs or something. Maybe that was it. I don't know what kind of real estate emergencies you have, but there wasn't a flight in her name. They couldn't find her ride share. I think and her company reported her missing on Wednesday, and so did her husband, because I bet he knew, oh yeah, they're gonna know she's not at work. Because that's when she was supposed to be back at work. Did I hear about her old oh yes. So her old house, I think this is just weird. This happened in the Idaho case too. Somebody put that there was a law firm in Moscow, Idaho that was burning, and everybody's like, oh, sure. And I looked up the Brian Coburg's attorney, and she's from a different part of the state. And then I looked up, well, are they talking about the coroner? Because she's also a lawyer, and it wasn't her thing. It was just a random fire. And it seems like in the Anna Walsh case, same thing. It seems like it's just weird, though. It's just weird. Her old house that she lived in prior to living in the house with her husband went up in flames. Do you think, KCT, that yeah, it is sketchy and it is super weird. And I don't know, maybe when they put the fire out, they'll find a skeletal remains. And then the husband would be like, oh, she probably went back because of memories. It was the new year. Oh, and then she, accidentally burned it down before her ride share. I don't know. We've heard crazy stories before, but it is going to be interesting. And again, with the Idaho case, when police are looking at things at first, they will say things aren't connected because they are looking at it. They don't want internet sleuths looking at it. That's understandable. So we will find out. Um, I'm going to say it again. Cohasset is a very, very, very wealthy. Yeah, I did get the idea. Yes, maybe one of the wealthiest in the state. I'm wondering if he set her up. Okay. When we have she seemed like a very dynamic person because she was working real estate in Washington, D.C., living and flying back and forth between this fabulous house in Massachusetts. I think you're right, Casey, 100%. I think there's going to be insurance money involved. I think he wasn't smart. I mean, it was January 1st. I mean, just barely, which means it was New Year's Eve. I don't know. Did she say for the New Year's, you're getting a divorce? I don't know what happened, but people drink a lot and people get, it's not all kisses and old lang syne. Maybe it was, I don't want to spend the new year with you. Who knows what happened? Or maybe somebody just got crazy and a champagne bottle ended up conked over somebody's head. Or it could have been a complete accident when people are drinking and then one person flips out. But the insurance money, she was, well, okay. Now, this is interesting, Casey. I wasn't going to say anything, but I have a whole other, if you follow me on Twitter, which is Trish Lee is my name on Twitter because my name's Patricia. I'm Patty Lee here. I know I live a double life myself, but so Patty Lee's my true crime name on the True Crime Grapevine. And on Twitter, I started out with jokes and then I'm a little liberal. You can call me the liberal lady if you want. I'm Crazy Mama. It's at Crazy Mama 007. And I do politics. And the fact that she wasn't, they described her as a 39-year-old Eastern European woman who, and I think they said who had an accent. if you are familiar with any of the whole crazy, when I hear Eastern European, unfortunately, I start thinking about Russia. When I start thinking about Russia, I start thinking of ghost stories. And ghost stories was where Russians actually had people living. It was like the long game for like 10, 20 years. They would like go into Canada. They would have, they called them, it was the Ghost Stories app because they were ghosts because they took babies' names. All their information were from babies who died a long time ago. Anyways, they caught a bunch of them in, was it 2011 or 12? Anyways, but they found more since then. It must be a way they do spies. So when they said she was of Eastern European descent, she had all this money and she was going to Washington, D.C. for selling real estate, part of me did think, like, is she involved in spycraft? I don't know. I mean, weirder things have happened, right? Casey was saying like DC is so far from Massachusetts, you know. Oh, thank you for being, which is weird that you have to go. Progressive is bad, but it's progress. But still, whatever. I just am an American, and I must say, not only am I for like spending, they're going to take our tax money no matter what. I'd like it spent on me, healthcare, education, elder care. You know, I want my tax money spent on me. I don't want it given to corporations. Sorry, corporations, but y'all seem to be doing just fine. I don't want to live in a corporate feudal system, but that's just me. Okay, I'm getting off track. Sorry, Casey. Kind of going down a rabbit hole. But back to what you said. It is very weird that, thank you. Um, it is very weird that that's why I thought, did she just disappear? Like, was she in some weird thing and doing something in Washington and she went there with her emergency and just took off? And oh my God, what if it is something like that? And she was she went under her like real name. Let's just go down the rabbit hole. And now her husband is being set up. What about that? That would be insane. But we don't know. Again, so when you don't know, especially, I don't know if you can see all these books around me. I have so many books, and my sister, and my mom. I missed 2 days because my dad was in the hospital, and I brought a girly book. It was like a Christmas book, and it had it. And my they saw it there in the room where I spent the night with my dad, and they left it there because they said it wasn't a murder book, so it couldn't be mine. I'm like, I am not just murder. I'm mostly murder. But, and yes, when I go shopping like I did today at the antique mall, do I look at things and go, oh, this is a beautiful, heavy object. It could be, you could murder somebody with this. Do I say that every time I go with at least one object? Yes. Do I have murder on my mind? Mostly. I don't know why. But that woman, the whole story is interesting. And Casey, thank you for telling me about, I mean, you could tell it was wealthy just because, like their house on the acreage and that fact she was flying to her job and that was normal. But the idea that it's like very, very wealthy, Casey, thank you. I am going to pay a lot closer attention to that, as I'm sure you will. And we shall see what we shall see, right? All right. So the two suspects in the Mikey Vaughn case I haven't heard anything about them. One was supposed to be in North Dakota, but he went between North Dakota and California. And the other one was in near my area. I'm right on the line between Michigan and Ohio. And one of the major cities near me is Toledo. And they said one of the suspects so it was Sandra Wondry. She was the one who was like off her nut. I mean, she seemed to be like a 70 IQ. I think she was taken advantage of. Her dad owned the house. And I think these other people were sort of like glomming on to her because she wasn't very bright. And this other guy had married her, Stacy Wandry. He's in jail for something else. But she was saying like somebody killed Mikey and she knew about it. So they arrested her for not reporting a death. And she said it was in this yard. They dug up the whole yard. They didn't find anything, but the cadaver dogs did hit, but there was nothing there. But there were two men. One was from North Dakota, one was from the Toledo area, but they were both sort of transient back and forth, involved in child trafficking and other associated and sundry bad things with kids. Did they kill him? Did they traffic him? Which would be worse at this point after a year? I'm sure his family, his mom, Brandy, would like him back no matter what. There was another case where cadaver dogs hit on somebody and the girl actually ended up being alive. So there can be weird mistakes. I don't know. That is a mess, but I am still looking into that case. And let's not forget the Crumley case. The kid and the parents. There was just this. You're popping back in. Yes, I know he was just arrested. Oh, you just saw it? That's what I said. All right. So you go back to work, Casey. Yes, but it is crazy. The whole story. I will keep up on it for you. And I come on every time about, I'm trying to get here about 11:11, angel numbers, whatever. Mostly because I procrastinate. But I have a nightcap tonight. It's Grand Marnier, 40% alcohol. That's why it's just a teeny tiny bit. And my snifter cup glass. You can smell the alcohol, man. It's coming right at you. But it is sweet. I like it. Anyway, you guys can catch me here around 11. I try to stop at midnight, but I'm going a little over because I have a few more things just to say. Like, we're going to catch up on the Crumley case. That's the Michigan case where the young man went to school and he really did seem to have all kinds. He told his parents he was hearing demons. He told everybody everything and nobody listened, but his parents gave him a gun. And then they ran. When he got in trouble, they took off and left him like, sorry about you. Then they got lawyers and let him have a public defender. It is nuts. We're going to keep up with that case because it reminds me of the 6-year-old who in Florida shot his teacher. And they're like, the 6-year-old suspect has been is been arrested. And I was like, a 6-year-old can't be a sub. I mean, 6-year-olds can't. Who gave the 6-year-old the gun? How did a 6-year-old obtain a weapon? How did that all go down? It is not the 6-year-old's fault. A 6-year-old can't cognitively. I can tell you that 100%. That's all I did was study that. So the thing about the Crumley case in Michigan, the child was in high school, but he was troubled. He did it, and he was underage, and everybody's like, well, try him as an adult. And I'm like, the whole reason we don't, it's just insane. We as parents and grown-ups are not raising children, are not caring for them. And when they are troubled, we are not noticing it until something horrific happens and then punishment. And the thing is, who should be punished? The adults in charge need to take responsibility for those in our care, is my opinion. Because throwing them away afterwards isn't really, I don't get it. I don't get it. All right. So we had the new case of Anna Walsh. We updated about the crazy online talk about that Brian Koberger, and did he write these crazy things or not? He will be, but more importantly, he will be in court. We talked about Mila Miliette's husband, Larry Miliette, will be in court tomorrow. I will catch you up tomorrow night about that. Oh, the De Bovallo. The jury questionnaire is going to be due this week, January 9th. John Pryor, get her done. Or forever hold your peace. Dude, you need to let him, you want that case separated. We know you do, hon. And Judge Boyce is getting tired of your reindeer games, is what I think. All right, we talked about the Murdaugh case. We have some motions that we're going to hear some more about. We're getting ready to go. It's going to happen in Waterboro, South Cackalack on January 23rd. I'm going to be watching Gigi from Pretty Lies and Alibis, I believe, and I'm sure Court TV and the Law and Crime Channel will have people down there that we can watch. I bet Brian Enton will be down there. I am guessing. That's all about, we talked all about that. I think I'm almost finished, people. Did I have anything more to tell you? No, I talked about that. All right, we're all caught up. And I made a new friend, KCT. I'll see you around. And, last night, Gomez was chatting. And if you're out there, go me, hey, I wanted to tell you that my mom asked me the same question you did, which was, what were the victims in the Idaho 4? What were their majors? And I found out for you. All right. Um, I have to look because I wrote it in pencil and I can't hardly see. Xana was a junior majoring in marketing, and she was a Pi Phi, Pi Beta Phi, but I was in the Greek system and it's Pi Phi. Maddie was a senior majoring in marketing. And we know, oh, look at that. Marketing is like advertising, also psychology, also getting people to buy things, um, or buy you. You know, you can market a person, you can market a candidate. That Maddie is a senior. She majored in marketing. She was a Pi Phi. Kaylee was a senior and she was in general studies. She, like me, she, like me, is an Alpha Phi. That's right, people. I'm an Alpha Phi. Who knew I was a sorority girl? Can you tell the blonde hair? Anyways, yes. Um, I didn't really, but I didn't drink a lot, and I thought a tea was real tea. I was into the philanthropy part of it, which is the doing good. I don't know. I thought it was going to be like a 1950s thing. It was not. And Ethan, so the general studies, that's why when somebody said she was in, I thought they said education. No, she was in general studies, probably in some business oriented thing because she was going to do a paid internship in after she went on a trip. She was leaving school, which makes me wonder because they said Brian was following them on social media. If he knew they were going to leave, did that hurry his timeline along? I wonder that because I said that I thought he wanted to be like Dr. Ramsland's main case, BTK, who killed 4 people, let a dog live, and was 28. Brian, as I told you all about the birthday thing in the other post, was not 28 until after the murders. So, did he want his first kill to be like BTK? Did he, as BCK, want it to be like BTK? But I was wrong. He wasn't 28 when the murders were committed. He was like a week and a half away from that. Which, goes against goes a little bit against my thing. So, corrections corner, he wasn't 28. He was almost 28. And we know now that he came back at 9:30 a.m. And I said he came back that they saw in the interview room. That was the next day. That was 2 days after the occurrence. He came back, or his phone came back in the area on that Valenta drive that on the interview room, you see a car like that go back and forth, um, at 9:30 a.m. Did he try to go back to see if he could get in and get the sheath back that he realized, oh, F? Or did he leave the sheath on purpose because it said, it would be like, oh, this is somebody in the military. And he wasn't in the military, but he wasn't smart enough to understand touch DNA is really so small that, he thought he was leaving something to distract from himself. And actually, he caught himself. And is in the detailing of the car, the one they really talked about was at 4 a.m. in Pennsylvania, where he was really cleaning the car at 4 a.m. in the morning and then threw away the stuff he cleaned in the neighbor's trash. It- I try to keep an open mind. Not good. I said before, 98% sure, but not 100, but anyway, so I wanted to tell Gomi that that was what the young victims were majoring in, and Ethan was sports management. So that's what they were majoring in. It's really sad. Another, not corrections, but on the interview room, they did say that maybe the dog was in the room with the girls. And if you look on the affidavit on the 3rd page at the top in the first paragraph, it is the officer describing what rooms they went into. He went into the larger bedroom. The dog was in the larger bedroom by himself. The girls were in that smaller bedroom after you walked past the bathroom. Maddie's bedroom, they were in that room together, and that's where the sheath was found next to Maddie. So I do believe that due to how the house is set up, that when Dylan first heard what sounded like Kaylee playing with the dog, and then she heard a voice say, I think somebody's here. I think it makes complete sense that Kaylee heard Murphy barking. I think whoever it was, let's say Brian, came in through that third balcony door. The dog starts barking, plays with the dog a little bit, shuts, and Kaylee hears Murphy barking. She opens up Maddie's door and says, "Yeah, I think somebody's here." Maddie, because the dog's going crazy, and that's what Dylan hears. So she just hears, I think somebody's here, but those girls could have had somebody coming over, right? After they, like, maybe they called Jack. She wouldn't know. So she closes her door. The other thing, I think I said it yesterday, but just to reiterate, there was a post that said that they were Dylan's friend. Now, I don't know if, again, speculation that this is accurate, but it makes sense to me that Dylan had a trauma as in a childhood and had PTSD and wasn't always sure, especially at night and things, if she was having a nightmare, if it was real, because she was real jumpy. And PTSD makes you think of, they think it's maybe war sounds, even though they know that they're not in a war anymore. But, it's a reaction, it's a PTSD. So if Dylan already had PTSD and then was hearing weird noises, but she had been out the night before, she was tired. Is this real? Is this not? Kind of makes sense, does it? Then she hears weird crying. Is she imagining it? But the cry, Xana's room, the third bedroom is, if you remember the setup, when you walk into the living room, you had to, I don't know if it was a step down or a step up into the next part of the house, where if you went around a small corner, that was the third bedroom. And then right after that, if you took a hard left, you'd go into the bedroom. But if you went like a little left and up the stairs, you would go to the third floor. And then if you walked out of the kitchen, out of the living room and took like a little jog to the right, then you'd go into the kitchen. So if Dylan really just peeked out her door, I don't think she heard Xana, who would have been slightly around a corner, down a step, and down a long hallway, past the living room area, down the hallway. I don't think it would have been Xana she heard. I think both Kaylee, maybe even Matt, I think they were all half asleep, but I don't think they were dead asleep. I think they were still kind of awake, which explains why Steve Calvez said that his daughter had defensive wounds. And we also know that Xana's dad said she fought. I don't think either of them were completely asleep. And I think Dylan then heard all the crying. What was that? That was when Xana was, and then she peeked out because she heard crying, and then she hears a voice of a man down that way, down the hall, say, "Don't worry, I'm not gonna," like, what did he say? "Don't worry, I'm gonna help you," which is a calming technique, which we know killers want their people to be calm. They lie to them, and then what happens. So she heard that crying, she heard that, she shut her door, and then she hears a little more whimpering and is like, "What the?" Opens her door again and then sees her word, like the boogeyman coming towards her and then walking out the door, and she's frozen. Like, and if she had PTSD, she probably did wonder, am I dreaming this shit? What is this really? Locking the door, going back, hiding in a room, wondering if she's losing her mind. How could this, what was that? And then light of day, maybe, or maybe in a few, maybe not even, maybe she goes to go talk to Xana or goes upstairs to talk to the girls and like, you won't believe what kind of crazy dream I had. I think I'm losing my mind. And instead of her friends laughing and saying, yeah, you probably are losing your mind, she runs into her worst nightmare and has even more of a trauma response. That's what I think happened. I think she had that akinetic catatonia response, and she was the unresponsive person. I think I said this last night. Anyways, so I think all of that can be explained, but in the interview room, they were saying the dog was in with the girls and maybe he had stuff on him. I don't think that was accurate, according to that third page, first paragraph, where it sounds like the investigator found the dog by himself in the bigger bedroom where Kaylee used to sleep. And it makes sense. Third floor, he enters. Kaylee hears. And maybe I really think Xana might have been the person that was targeted because Xana is in a picture with her sister at a Washington State University game. And we know his phone was already before the first night of classes. He was in their neighborhood. Now, was he just stalking anybody, driving around anywhere because it was in his system and he was going to do it? Or did he see Xana with her sister on the Washington State campus, look her up, stalk her online, find out where she lived and started visiting there, and then just couldn't help himself? And then, so if he went in on the third floor, maybe he was just going to sneak down to get Xana. Xana's door, remember Xana's door had been broken and her dad said he was going to fix it? I'm fixated on this whole idea that Brian was like, or whoever the killer was, allegedly Brian was like the Golden State Killer, and that he made recon visits to that house and he did mess with Santa's door so that he could get in there. I don't know. I think it's a big possibility. All right, everybody, if anybody's watching out there in the interweb world, good night. I will see you tomorrow. It's been an hour, so bye.